Hi.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
This is just, I have so much fun doing these. This is a lot of fun.
It is fun, yeah. It's nice when, I can actually start, ranting about stuff and people actually want to listen to me.
I know, it's
great.
crazy. So, this is whatever episode of For Nostalgia's Sake. We have back in the chair Miss Emilee Dummer.
Hello, everybody.
So, for those of you who haven't watched that episode of What's It Like, or listened to, we can't watch anything. Can't watch
one day,
a voice.
Maybe do a camera podcast. That would be fun.
So, for those of you who don't know her, please state your name and what you do for the record.
Yeah, like Nick said, my name's Emilee Dummer. Opposite is smarter and wiser. Get that a lot.
Every time.
I have to clarify now because otherwise people are like, wait, what? Like, did you say drummer, doomer? It's like, no. Nope, that's what I
originally put your name in my phone was Emilee Drummer because I was like, she didn't say Dummer, did she?
No, people are like, you can't be disparaging yourself like that. I was like, no, I do every day. Every time. No, it's fun. And my family, we've got all the jokes about it. So.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm the oldest sibling, so I can always say my siblings are a little dumber, which is nice.
Ooh, burn. Take that, Anna.
But yeah, I am an illustrator. I'm a storyteller. Right now I'm a wannabe storyboard artist. So I wear a lot of hats, but
wear a lot of hats. Yep, we're gonna get
hats.
You all the hats.
I love hats.
We're just gonna find a box and put it in your closet.
Sounds good to me. I mean, free clothes.
It's like, hey man, I just graduated from college. I can take all the free clothes.
Exactly.
How do you feel about getting socks?
It depends on if they're cool socks.
I love getting socks. For
really?
Christmas and stuff. Yeah. More than anything for some reason. Because
really?
So where we're at right now, we're in Provo, Utah. And there's a brand of socks here that is very popular. It's called Stance. Stance socks. Mm-hmm. They're expensive beyond all mortal ken. They it's like
socks.
$16 for a pair of socks.
Just a pair, just
one pair.
What?
Yeah. So for those of you who can't see right now, I will explain to you the socks that I'm wearing right now. They are black socks. They have this diamond
Argyle pattern.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. But on the toe, it says Death Wish.
So do they put all the funny stuff on the toe so people can't see it? No,
it's just really cool designs. I have one that when I looked at it, I don't know if you play video games a lot. It reminded me of a boss from Final Fantasy X. Mm-hmm. And it's just weird art. That's it. And I was like, this is really cool. I need to get these. But so they had a warehouse sale and I bought 11 pairs.
Nice.
And they were so cheap. Oh my gosh. So I had to buy all the socks that my paycheck could allow for.
Hey, live your dream, man.
Dude, look, I love
live
socks.
Your sock dream.
I will live my sock dream. I may not have money for it, but I'm going to live it anyway.
Yeah.
So today what we're going to actually be talking about is not socks.
Pity, though. You should do a whole episode about that.
What's it like to love socks?
You can just interview yourself.
No, that'd be a boring interview.
But if you do different voices, if you have the interviewer be a British accent or something, and then you just talk normal for yourself,
I'm for Essex, bro, innit? Today we're gonna be talking about socks, innit? No, we can't do that. That'd be horrible. So today we're gonna be talking about you and how you became an illustrator, and basically what made you want to be an illustrator, and what influenced you as a kid. So in the last episode, we talked about your snowman.
My snowman.
Your noodle snowman.
My noodle snowman, yes.
So
where it all started.
So how old were you with that?
I think I was 3, I want to say.
You were 3 years old. So take me through the timeline of your art history up until about middle school.
Okay. Yeah, so 3-year-old me loved just drawing all the things. I loved drawing holiday things. I loved drawing Santa and the Easter Bunny. I had in my mind that there were rules you can only draw Santa around Christmas time. You can only draw the Easter Bunny around Easter.
Already giving yourself rules. These
exactly.
are the specifications.
Yeah, and then just drawing fun stuff. I drew a lot of mermaids. I can't remember how old I was, but kind of around the same time. I think it was maybe 4 or 5. But I also my mom signed me up for this art camp thing. It was just a week, and all I remember is that we went and we colored with colored pastels. But that's also where I was introduced to Picasso and Van Gogh. Was in that art camp.
You were 4?
Yeah, and I still love Starry Night because I remember trying to copy it in that class.
I'm sorry, you were 4 years old using pastels, trying to
oil
mimic
pastels. I should clarify.
That is a big difference.
Yeah,
you were trying to mimic Van Gogh.
Yes.
Or Van
yes,
Gogh.
I was.
Sorry, I don't know if you guys are going to be murdering me. It's either Van Gogh or Van Gogh. You guys can pick which one you like. But that's crazy. Because when I was 4, I was probably just picking my nose.
I bet I did the same thing as well. Like
That's crazy, though. So who do you prefer more, Van Gogh or Picasso?
That's hard because, like, what I really loved about Picasso was the faces, and I called them my two-face girls. I would, like, with my oil pastels I got to take home from that art camp, I would draw, like, these girls with, like, really crazy colored faces, and they were always, like, divided in half, you know, just like Picasso.
Wow,
so, like,
that's kind of deep.
Yeah.
Your two-faced girls, wow.
They're two-faced. One's evil, one's not. No, I think you're just liking the colors and like.
We're gonna get too deep into it. You were 4.
Yeah, I was
it's not
4,
a big deal.
and I was so into like Barbies and stuff too. So I was like, this was the princess and like stuff like that.
Oh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason why I ask is because when I was in high school,
mm-hmm.
I did a paper on Picasso's Guernica,
mm-hmm.
which I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I've actually seen it. I got to go to Spain and see it on a study abroad, and that was
all right. Cool. Thanks
great.
for rubbing that in. No, but so I remember, and it was so interesting trying to figure out what he was trying to like interpret or like
mm-hmm.
what he was basically trying to show off, because Picasso's so confusing.
Yeah.
Like especially his animals.
His animals, they crack me up so hard. I don't think he meant to make them funny, but they are.
You're just like in the museum, like looking at Picasso, and everybody else is like, "Oh yes, very insightful," and you're just laughing, like sitting in the corner, trying not to laugh.
And like going back to that study abroad, like we did go to the Picasso Museum, and they had a bunch of his stuff from when he was in college, and again, he started out as like super realistic painting and stuff,
mm-hmm.
but they also had some of his sketches there, and there's this one where he was making fun of his friend that like I just had to take a picture of because he was just like doodling his friend like as like this dorky artist like walking with all this art supplies, and like the sun was just like frowning upon him above, and like it was so funny because you think of all these artists being super hoity-toity and whatnot, but now he was just like making fun of his friend like. And just drawing this stupid looking sun, which honestly would make a great reaction image nowadays, like in our age of memes. Like,
I guess we're gonna have to look at that. We're gonna have to go to that museum and meme it.
Let's do it.
Nothing is sacred anymore. So at 5 years old, you were basically the Mozart of painting because you liked Picasso. So after that art camp, where did it go?
I think I just kept drawing and stuff.
Randomly?
Yeah, just drawing. I got into... My parents had a bunch of Calvin and Hobbes books.
I love Calvin and Hobbes.
Calvin and Hobbes is the bomb. Like,
oh my gosh. Calvin and Hobbes, I remember like rereading those comic books because we had like the anthologies where it was like 180 pages of just Calvin and Hobbes.
The indispensable Calvin and Hobbes.
I love
the,
that.
Authoritative, whatever. Like, all
like
those great
what is that
adjectives.
one? Like the one with like the time machine on the cover?
Yeah, the scientific progress
yes.
goes boink.
Oh my gosh. I love Calvin and Hobbes. I remember reading those so early on.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Calvin and Hobbes is so
that's
good.
how I was too. Like my mom jokes that's how like I like learned how to read was from like reading Calvin and Hobbes. And
oh, absolutely.
So good. And I think that was like where I started to love comics was from reading those. And I mean, I even tried to make my own. I think like I had a stuffed elephant, so I was like, here's this girl and her elephant that comes to life around her. It was totally a blatant ripoff, but like that's all you do when you're a kid. But
it's funny because especially with Calvin and Hobbes, who's the artist who did that? It was
Bill Watterson.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The funny thing about that comic is that he made Calvin a lot more mature than any of us ever were.
Oh, yeah.
I remember like reading those jokes as like kids, and I was just like, this doesn't make sense to me, but I like the pictures.
Yeah, you like
and then
the
I remember
pictures.
reading them back, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is a lot deeper than I would have thought that anybody could think of for like an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I don't know. Calvin and Hobbes was... That's a nostalgia trip.
Well, it's so witty. It's so well drawn. Like, I think I still draw rocks like the way Bill Watterson does. Like, just the way he does it, like with a super thick outline. Then you have like these like thinner like contour lines on the inside that like cross sometimes. Like I still do that. I'm like, oh yep, I know where that came from. See,
the interesting thing that I like about Bill Watterson and Calvin and Hobbes is that like Calvin and his parents, Hobbes, like they're all so cartoony. But then like when he does the imagination of Calvin, it's so hyper realistic. When he draws dinosaurs, I thought that was like a stroke of genius because it was just you have this super cartoony character, but then you have really detailed imagination. That's kind of how it actually is for a kid.
Exactly. Yeah, it's so vivid. Like using your imagination when you're even if just the room is blank, but like you're seeing like a jungle or a spaceship or whatever, and
I loved it.
amazing.
It was so interesting, especially and this shows you how long it's been since I've actually read Calvin and Hobbes. His superhero alter ego,
a stupendous man.
No, it was
Spaceman Spiff.
Spaceman Spiff.
Yes.
Those were some really good drawings, especially like with like his aliens. Oh man, that was just
So
wonderful
good.
art. Such good art.
And, well, even the way he does his forests. I was reading in like the Into the Spider-Verse art book. They were actually inspired by his forest for that, like for the forest scene where they're like breaking out of the out of like the science
lab,
place, and,
yeah.
and Gwen's introduced, and like they were inspired by that, and how he just has sometimes branches just like floating off in the distance. They're not even like connected to a tree, and they did that in like the animation. Like
That's so
some of the
interesting.
trees aren't even grounded, but they're like they give you that feel of like having it be this like vast forest.
Man, that's some good art, man. That takes me back. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Calvin and Hobbes. For everybody who's too old or too young. No, okay. If you're too old to remember it, then that means you probably, I'm sorry. But if you're too young to know what Calvin and Hobbes is, you need to look that up. Calvin and Hobbes by Bill Watterson is one of the greatest comics to ever come out of my childhood. Such good art. And the stories... See, the kids nowadays are like more woke, as they say, so they'll probably get the jokes. But like for me, I was just like, ooh, this is just really good. It's really goofy. So it was Calvin and Hobbes.
Yes.
Then where did it go?
And where I feel like Calvin was a long time. Like
It really was, though.
like, because I would read those like every Sunday. Like my parents had the same thing. We had like all the anthologies and stuff, and I'd ask for them for Christmas too. Like my grandparents were like, Merry Christmas, like 2005, and it's like another Calvin and Hobbes for me.
Oh,
like,
2005 was such a long time ago.
yeah, so that was constant. Also, just as I got older and was able to read more, I was reading all the time. Like I read like Magic Tree House. I could like down 3 of those in like
those
one
are
night.
thin books. Oh yeah,
Super
absolutely.
thin. And then I just like grade school and stuff. I would, still drawing, still reading a lot, experimenting with different things. Like as a kid, like I would draw. If I liked a TV show, I would like I would basically do fan fiction of it. Like I would draw like these little like comics of like the characters doing who knows what. I'd like to
anything.
I like to torture them a lot. I would be like, what if this character
Whoa.
got deathly ill and all the other characters had to take care of them? Like,
Should I be scared?
No.
You sure? Okay, I'm just gonna.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't really move because I have to keep
the drama.
It's the drama.
It was the drama of it, and like, yeah, so, I would make these fan fiction of like my favorite cartoons and whatever, and I think I'd also do like original stuff too, like. But yeah, I distinctly remember those like super bad, like Harry Potter, but it's in Hawaii. Like that was one of my comics.
Tropical Potter. So do you remember any of like the original characters that you made from that time, like in like middle school and?
Not too much from like elementary school, because I don't think I really wrote like full stories like that. They were just like, oh yeah, there's a girl and like she's the girl.
Right.
But, yeah, getting into middle school and stuff. I think I mentioned this on the last episode I was on, but like I had a bunch of friends and we'd make up stories together.
Right.
And even towards the end, like of elementary school, I met one of my really good friends from back then, and then we would make up stories together. Like at recess, we just like talk and and we, being the nerds that we were, we always bring in Pokemon somehow, which again kind of goes back to the fan fiction thing.
It was popular. It was popular at the time.
Yeah,
Pokemon is huge.
And it wasn't just like, oh, my character's so cool and they're going to like defeat Ash in a battle or whatever. No, it was like, what if there's a conspiracy in the league? People are actually evil and like we have to fight them.
Whoa,
and like
that's
so
deep.
Stuff like that. So it wasn't just like, I mean, we did have like our Mary Sue characters and like overpowered characters, but like we actually built quite a bit of lore about it, which was super fun because it was just for us too. We weren't like, oh, let's write this down and send it into Nintendo and they'll make it into a TV show or whatever. It was just fun for us, and that's where I did a lot of art for that as well. Like again, like I mentioned in the last episode, I actually wrote out one of our stories as a comic and gave it to my friends for Christmas, and and that was super fun. I mean, it was just on like ballpoint pen printer paper. Like I scanned it in and we got it printed through like Lulu or something. Like one of those.
That's what I was going to ask you, because I remember you mentioned that. And I was like, did you draw every single comic that you gave to your friends, or did you like scan it through?
No, like we scanned it, and
good. And
I had delusions of grandeur, like in middle school, like because about that time I started discovering like webcomics and stuff too, and I was like, whoa, this is cool, and as well as like a lot of manga and stuff.
Right.
Got into that, so I was like, I want to make comics and like post them on like a blog spot or whatever, and people will come read them and like.
Yeah. No. So what was your favorite webcomic?
Oh, that's hard to say. I can't actually remember a lot of the really early ones that I got into. I remember mostly the mangas that I read back then.
Yeah.
But
okay, well then let's go to that. Give me your top. I mean, we have time. Give me your top 5. Top 5 manga.
Okay, first off, I loved the Pokemon Adventure series. That was
the one with Red.
The one with Red.
Yeah. The origin story. Yeah,
that's good stuff. Like I actually binge read all of them again like last year, and I was like, these still hold up.
So good. Yeah.
So those were super influential. A lot of my library had a lot of the Legend of Zelda mangas too.
Oh my gosh, dude, the Ocarina of Time manga is so depressing. Yeah. When you have to like, okay, this is going to be major spoilers. If you haven't played Legend of Zelda, I'm sorry. If you haven't read the manga, I'm sorry. Both for the fact that you haven't experienced them and for what I'm about to reveal. In the manga, when Link grows up... Okay, hold on. Let's backtrack. So in the manga, he meets Volvagia, the fire dragon, as a baby. And they become like best friends.
Yeah, I remember that.
Oh my gosh.
Memories.
Yes. And then he grows up, and then Volvagia turns evil because Ganondorf is like a mastermind at torturing you, and he makes you have to kill Volvagia.
I forgot about that. Why are you reminding me?
My God. That was... I cried because I played the games as a kid, and I was just like, "Oh, it's just a fire dragon. It's like, whatever. It's evil. I can kill this." But then I remember reading it. I was like, "What have I done? Why did I do that?" It was, oh my gosh. Do yourself a favor. Never read those manga if you've played the games, because you will regret every moment of that.
Or if you like crying, you should definitely read them.
Or vice versa. Oh my gosh. So which Legend of Zelda manga did you like the most?
Oh, that's good. I feel like I read all of them because, you'd run out of the handful they had at the library, so you'd go and order them online and get all of them. But yeah, I did. I remember that one. I remember Ocarina of Time. That was a really good one. They did Minish Cap, actually. I remember that one pretty well.
I do remember the Minish Cap too.
That one was fun.
Actually, the Majora's Mask one was really good too.
Yes, I remember that one.
Because it gave you the origin story of the mask itself.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's actually a really interesting story.
So that one was super good too.
Did they do 4 swords?
Yeah, I think they did everything.
They were honestly, those are really good manga. They were very, very good.
What's crazy is that it's the same team too, I think, for all of them.
Yeah,
and they just
adapt.
They just changed their style to whether it's like Toon Link or Ocarina of Time Link and everything. And good stuff.
Which, funnily enough, if you're listening this and the episode with Dr. Kevin John has come out, that man, which we went over this in his episode, but his office is filled to the brim with just nerd stuff. It's got Mass Effect, it's got Halo. He's even got a practice kendo sword. It's fantastic. But so he has 3 of the series from the Legend of Zelda manga just sitting on one of his shelves.
Nice.
And I was just like, oh man, I want to read this so bad. Okay, so we'll count The Legend of Zelda as one whole unit.
Yeah,
it's a big unit.
Yeah, and then I had a friend who was really into a lot of the shoujo manga and stuff. So I read Kitchen Princess was another one that we really liked, and Fruits Basket. I
never got into the shoujos. There was one or
very
two.
Fluffy.
Fruits Baskets was weird. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I watched the anime first from that, but and it was mostly there was the one friend that really loved it, and so her enthusiasm rubbed off on me because and we're also teenage girls, so we're the demographic, so we're this is so cool, all the drama.
I'm trying to remember. There was I can't remember if there was any shoujo that I really got into, because I remember one of my friend, he actually ordered and got the Shonen Jump, the big old magazine.
The big magazine every month.
But I don't remember if there were any shoujos that I got into until recently. Because the only one I remember is my friends being really big into Fruits Baskets. But other than that...
Yeah, and I hear they actually rebooted the anime
They
recently,
did. They recently did it, yeah. I think it's on Netflix.
Check that out and see if I want to... see if I cringe or if I'm memories.
See if it holds up?
Yeah, see if it holds up.
I don't know. It probably doesn't hold up compared to Legend of Zelda.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's top tier stuff here.
Yeah, A-list stuff. So... shoujos, and then
I liked a lot of Clamps stuff as well, Magic Knight Rayearth and
Tsubasa.
Tsubasa
Reservoir
that was
Chronicles.
my jam.
That was such a long series.
Yeah.
So there was that, and then did you ever? Oh, I can't remember because it was Tsubasa,
and then Holic was the other one with
XXX Holic. Yeah, that was the one. I honestly liked that one more than I liked Tsubasa.
That one was a little more structured. Tsubasa got a little tangled towards the end. You're just wait, what's happening?
Yeah, I think I got to chapter 100, and I was just where is this going, man? This is so confusing.
Well, then they start doing a bunch of wibbly wobbly timey wimey stuff with it, and you're just okay. That wasn't what I was hoping the payoff for this Easter egg from the beginning would be, but it was still so fun. And they just had so much fun with the art too. They would hide one of their characters in every world they visited, and you'd be oh, there she is.
See, and that's why I really liked XXX Holic, because I knew about Tsubasa, but not very well. But I really like the idea of like the yokai with him, but then it was also mixed with Tsubasa. Things that would happen to, like, it was a crossover, and they're like, oh, I recognize where those two meet up. That was what I really liked about XXX Holic rather than Tsubasa.
Yeah, and it would be cool like when you could like get the volume side by side where like they interact and you see like what they're doing in Holic like affects Tsubasa, and you're just like, oh, whoa.
So wait, is it Holic or is it XXX Holic?
I don't know, because like people have said like, oh, the X's are silent because that's like where like you sign your name or something, or
that's fair. I don't know. We're not going to look that up right now. We can't.
Feel free to discourse that, everyone. Like,
yeah, everybody get in the comments. Just tell us who's right and who's wrong. It's probably me who's wrong.
Yeah, so that was a lot of like middle school and like early high school was.
So that's only 4. So we need one more. So we've got So in order, we've got Pokemon, the origin with Red. We've got Legend of Zelda. We have the shoujos. We have Tsubasa.
There were 2
Clamp.
shoujos though, so I think you should give me the 5th one.
Nah. No, I need one more.
Okay, one more.
Because shoujos are boring. Ooh, I said it.
Again, feel free to discourse this.
Yeah, man, get in the comments.
Man, I'm trying to think if there was a 5th one, like, because I know there's series I read, but it was more just because I was running out of things to read.
Yeah.
Like, and I just read them because I could. I think there was one. It was about like witches. And like they had to like capture people's hearts or something. Like that was another like shoujo-y magic one.
Was that Cardcaptor Sakura?
No, it was different because they were like witches, like potions and wands and stuff. Not like Sakura, but I do remember an anime though that I was super into. It was called like Samurai 7. I don't know if you've seen that one.
It sounds vaguely
It's like a
familiar.
steampunk version of Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai.
I don't think I've heard
It's pretty
that
obscure. Like it's only 1 season long, and it's like the full story.
Right.
But that was another thing that I was super into, me and my friends, because the world been like super cool, like with the steampunk and like the Japanese like samurai stuff, and they don't fight bandits, they fight like giant robots, which is why it's super anime. But
the interesting thing though is that there were a lot of series that I preferred to read, but then there were a lot of series that I preferred to watch over read. Fullmetal Alchemist, it was a fantastic anime, but I didn't really like the manga that much. I think it was mostly because of Vic Mignogna. Again, this is purely subjective, and you guys can discourse this all you want. There are certain anime that are better in English than they are in the original Japanese. And Fullmetal Alchemist is one of them. Because I personally think in the Japanese version, Ed's voice doesn't fit. Neither does Al's. But in the English, for some reason, those voices just fit so well with those characters.
They did a fantastic job.
Yeah. It's kind of like Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Z is so much better in English than it is in Japanese, just because I feel like the voices fit better with the characters. Funnily enough, I had a friend, I've always wanted to meet Vic Mignogna. I had a friend meet him by accident. And he was like, oh, here, yeah, I'll get the sign for you. And I was like, this? Are you kidding me? He was my idol. Like, I don't know if you know a lot about like voice actors or anything. Yeah. Vic Mignogna was a lot of different voices for a lot of different English animes.
I did know that.
But he's also a singer.
Really?
He did a song for Fullmetal Alchemist. And it made me cry.
Aw.
Because I love his voice, but hearing him sing was there's something about his voice that's very good. So if you guys don't know who Vic Mignogna is, you need to look up Edward Elric, voice actor, on YouTube. Because I honestly don't remember how to spell his last name. It's really convoluted. Did you have any of those animes that like you preferred to watch over than reading?
That is good. I feel like, I don't know, because I actually didn't watch too many, like I didn't watch too many animes because all we had was like Netflix, like,
right.
And or I'd go over to my friend's house and she'd get a bunch. But I do remember another manga though. It was called like Yotsuba and it was like a slice of life comedy one.
Oh, those slice of life ones are interesting.
That one was good because it was about this little girl who's just like a riot and is like a chaotic force and like just like living with her dad and like their neighbors, and so it was super slice of life but really clever and fun writing, and the art was really good in that one too because the backgrounds are like super detailed, like kind of like pen hatching and stuff. Yeah. And so that's just another really fun one I liked that I just remembered.
See, I'm beginning to notice a theme here that you're into chaotic.
I like chaos.
You're like a lawful, or what is it? You're like a chaotic good. Yeah, that's exactly. That's kind of what I'm getting here.
That's funny because like in real life, like breaking rules scares me so much. Like we were at Costco the other day and I was looking for like a desk and a chair, and they had a sign being like, don't sit in this chair because COVID, and my mom's like, sit in the chair, Emily, and I'm like, I don't want to sit in the chair, there's a sign.
It says no, don't sit in the chair.
So maybe that's why in like my art and stuff I do like to kind of embrace those chaotic good characters because I don't want to do it in real life.
Because you're such
like,
a goody two-shoes in real life.
Pretty much, yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying you're boring or anything, but, you know,
Yeah.
if the boot fits,
Wear it.
yeah, wear it proudly. So,
Boots were made for walking.
oh my gosh, stop it. No. So, okay. So we got into the anime, but here's, because I like asking this question, just not necessarily on the show, but just like in general to people. Did you ever like Studio Ghibli?
Yes.
When did you get into Studio Ghibli?
It was through that one friend that had like all
That
the
anime phase?
Yeah.
Because I remember starting to watch it when I was 12. And you guys can make fun of me for all this, you know, for all you want. I had a babysitter when I was 12 because I was that chaotic child. My parents did not trust us. So me and my little brother, we would go to our babysitter's house, and she loved Studio Ghibli. I remember just one day she's like, okay, cool, I'm going to put on a movie for my kid, and you guys can watch it if you want. And it was My Neighbor Totoro. That, I recently watched it again. I was like crying the whole time. I was like, it's so cute. I love this. Totoro's my favorite. He's so good. Because of that movie, like I got so into that, like that specific art style. I love Hayao Miyazaki. Like he is
gorgeous.
He is a national treasure. That man needs to live forever because his art style is just so, it's so weird, but it's so good at the same time.
Yeah. Like, and I mentioned in the last episode I was on, like I love analyzing like movies and stuff. And
yeah.
what's beautiful about his movies is that they break so many of the rules, especially in like Western storytelling and Eastern storytelling. I mean, there's a difference, but like he breaks so many rules, but it works. And I'm just like,
I like
this
it.
is great.
I know. So, which Studio Ghibli movie is your favorite?
Oh, that is a hard
because it's hard
question.
to pick one.
I think I'd have to say probably Spirited Away. Like,
Really?
That one is just...
Is it because of that weird art style and because of like all the goofy characters?
No, I think what I love about Spirited Away is how it's a hero's journey, but it's not like a traditional hero's journey. Because Chihiro, a lot of heroes, you get into their head more, but a lot of time you're just watching what she does. You don't really get to, like, in the traditional sense of where you're like, oh, like they have this motivation and stuff. And obviously you see her motivation and she wants to get her parents back, but so much of her growth like happens, I think, within her own mind, and we just get to watch it happen.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Like,
yeah.
And there's just so many beautiful parallels to, like, you know, the first scene when she's like running down the stairs screaming, and then when she's running on the pipe later trying to save Haku, and she just does it full confidence. There isn't like one moment where she's like, I am now Chihiro the hero, versus, you know, she just grows into it slowly.
Yeah. And I think the interesting part is like at the very end, Haku makes her that little, or no, it's
like the Yubaba's sister.
Yeah, it's a grand. Well, they called her Granny, but like when she makes that hair tie, you see it glint at the very end. You're like, oh,
so it was real.
Yeah,
it wasn't just a dream.
Yeah, and so it's just like it's really interesting because you see that whole thing, and then like, you see that little bling, and it's I loved it. That's such a good movie.
Yeah.
See, my favorite was, I don't know. It's always, like you said, it's really hard to pick a favorite Hayao Miyazaki movie, but I think my favorite was either Howl's Moving Castle or Princess Mononoke. It's a really hard tie between those because one, I like the love story in Howl's Moving Castle. It's really, really interesting. It's really convoluted and complex. But I really like some of the animation that they do in Princess Mononoke with like when his arm goes like all weird and demony and like you see it just like start wiggling. I'm just like, you know, that's not normal. But like at the same time, you know the information that like his arm is cursed. Yeah. So it's just like I like seeing those like, you know, it's not normal, but the way that he does the animation is just, it's so good.
Well, and the music is just phenomenal and like all of that.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Hand down. One of the best soundtracks you'll ever listen to is any movie from those movies. Just, oh man. I wish Disney would just buy it already just so I can get it on Disney Plus.
That would be good. At the same time, like, do we want them to own it?
No, absolutely not. They'd ruin it. Absolutely, 100%. So this was all in middle school, though.
Well, like, it bled into early high school as well. Like, because I was with that same group of friends all through there. Though it was interesting because, so I lived in, like, my family moved around a bit when I was a baby, and like in Texas is where I would like drew the snowman and stuff. So that's where that started. And then we moved to Oregon for most of my elementary school, and then we moved to Utah for like most of my middle school and high school. So that's where I did that. And then in the middle of high school, we moved back to Oregon. So it was right around that time where my style started to shift away from like the anime style a lot, because I had been drawing super hardcore that for a couple years, and I think every anime kid has that, like, I'm gonna move to Japan and like work.
Yeah, like I'm gonna be a mangaka.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, sweet summer child, no.
Sweet summer child. Oh, if only you knew.
Yeah, and then so it was there where like I got into some really good art classes at my new high school, and like I mentioned last time, I had a really good teacher there that kind of encouraged me to push away from drawing just strictly anime, and I'm so grateful that she did that, because I just experimented with like painting and inking and like all these different mediums that I had kind of blocked myself away from before, because I'm like, no, that's not how they do it in the anime.
They just do pencils. That's how they do it.
Yeah, exactly. And it was also right around that time where animation started like coming back to me, like Western animation specifically.
Right.
And I think it was a Thanksgiving when Big Hero 6 came out, and we went to see it up at my aunt's house, and she lived on this like tiny, actually like on a little island out in the I forgot what it's called, but it's in Washington, like the
Puget Sound?
No, somewhere up there. Like I know the island's name. It's Anacortes, Washington. Like it's up there. It's up there.
I don't know anything about Washington.
It's really cool. So like everyone has a boat and a car, and like
it's kind of like in Idaho. Everybody has a snowmobile and a car.
Exactly. Yeah. So just super cool area. But anyway, that's not really important. But well, I guess it is, because we went to see Big Hero 6 up there in her town, and the movie theater was tiny, tiny, tiny. There weren't very, very many people there, so we were all super close to the screen. And I just remember like watching Big Hero 6 and watching how the characters moved, and like how their faces would distort and like for their expressions, and something in me was like, that's cool, and I can't do that. Because every time I'd try to put like a line on like my anime character's face, they would just look like an old woman, but like they were doing like the stretch lines around the mouth, like, or like the nose crinkle lines, and I was just like, there's just a level of like artistic command there that I saw, and I was like, I don't have that, but I want that.
No, yeah, because that movie came out in 2014. So were you still in high school?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I remember being really impressed with the animation of like the mini bots, because that was really interesting. How like you could form something that was rigid, but then it was also able to like flow and move like that. So that was really what really impressed me with that movie. It was just like that detail to all these minuscule pieces that fit into one huge thing.
Yeah, and it was just like, so I think that was one of the moments that was like, hey, maybe you could work in like animation one day, and like kind of sparked me leaning a little off of like the anime stuff and more towards like exploring like the just in general animation style.
Right.
And, that's also like when I got into Tumblr for the first time, so I was exposed to a ton of artists there who were also like doing more like unique styles. And I think like I mentioned in the last episode, I was like, I want to find like my own style that like isn't just like me trying to copy like my favorite anime and manga artists. And so so that was a big turning point for me. And I also started listening to like podcasts, like I know like the Chris Oatley podcast that they do, where they bring on like animation people, just like
I haven't
we're doing
heard
right
that
now.
one.
Yeah, it's really good. There's a lot of good stuff on there. So that's also when I realized that like, oh, people do this as a job. Like, it's a thing. People get paid to make animation stuff.
And I guess it's the dream too. You find something that you like when you're a child, and then you hope that you can make that something when you're an adult. Because like people are like, oh, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? And then you have to think about it, and you're just, well, I want to do this, but as you get older, it's like, can I make that a reality? Because I remember for me as a kid, I was big into like playing music. So like I was in band, I played trombone, for all you cool kids out there who play trombone. But I really, really liked it, and I tried getting in. I honestly thought, I was like, cool, I'm gonna go to school and I'm gonna do it in music performance. I was gonna play trombone. And then I was like, can I really make a job out of this though? Like, can I really become successful being like, a trombone player in like an orchestra or in a symphony? No, symphony is purely strings. My bad. Orchestra has a mix.
The first trombone player in an orchestra.
No, we're not going to make a string instrument out of a trombone. I can't do both. Trombone's hard enough. I can't multitask like that. But it was just interesting. And then I was like, can I do music direction? Because I love, for example, we were talking, Kevin and I, we were talking about the music behind like Final Fantasy. I don't know if you've listened to any of that music. It's so good. There's one piece called One Winged Angel from Final Fantasy VII. And there's just something about that just makes me wish I could direct that in front of like a full orchestra, because it's so good. It's just finding that dream that, you're like, can I make this work as a job, but can I also love doing it at the same time?
Yeah, and then I think most of the time you don't even know that the job you want exists. Like,
no, yeah, absolutely.
It's definitely a journey.
So you were still in high school.
Mm-hmm.
You were trying to branch out and like find your own style. So what started to inspire you with finding your own style?
Again, going back to webcomics, there were a couple webcomics that I like got back into around that time. There was this one called The Black Brick Road. It was like a Wizard of Oz retelling by this Russian artist. I forget what her name is, but that was one of the ones where like I saw it on Tumblr and I was like, whoa, this is super cool and like unique. I could tell like what her influences were for like with like animation stuff, but it still felt like her specifically. And I also discovered this is creeping forward into college, but there's another artist. Her name's Grace Liu, but she goes by like Grass Flu on Instagram or Nargile on Tumblr. And she was a storyboard artist, but also came from like a super anime background, but had developed like this really cool dynamic like action style. She does a lot of boards for superhero shows on like Disney XD and stuff.
Okay.
Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So she's just super good at action and like foreshortening, and so I discovered her, and that was another like, whoa, like again, like that's something I want but I don't have, and
right.
want to work towards that.
So did you start animating around this time, like trying to do like digital animation?
Actually, like back in middle school and high school, do you remember like Flipnote Hatena on like, the DS? So I animated on that a lot, and and I was actually, my friends and I we kind of formed like a studio, air quotes, where we would work together on them, and like my friend Hannah was basically my agent. She'd be like, "Hey Emily, we need to make this thing," and I'm like, "Okay," like, but Mom says I can't play anymore today, so like let me work on it more. And so we would post our like animations on there.
That's interesting. And this is the thing that I've always been confused about. So is animating basically just like making a big flip book?
Pretty much, yeah. With a lot more nuance than like...
Well, yeah, obviously.
But yeah, it's like frame by frame. Well, first you like break down your key frames, which are like the main poses, and then you break down, okay, what needs to go in between them to make it smooth. And
right.
There's like all those principles of animation, like the timing, squash and stretch, little techniques to make it
that goes way over my head. I cannot fathom that. Like, give me a language and I can break it down. You start telling me like, okay, cool, this is how you animate, and I'm just like, I can't. It's so complicated to me.
That's interesting because like everyone's brain has different things that it just vibes with. Even now, like I had to do some rough animation for my job a couple weeks ago, and like I hadn't animated in over a year. I took maybe like one class on it in school, but it just came back and it was like, okay, I should add one more frame here so it's slower on like this arm is swinging. It should be fast. Like shouldn't be as many frames like as the arm's moving, but like when it starts slowing down at the end, like I should slow it down so it's whoosh.
Right. Whoosh instead of whoop.
Yeah, like that. And so, yeah, I think that's one thing that, like I've just had like a natural like leaning towards, but like if you don't do anything with it, it's like worthless. So
right.
Like I had to learn how to do that again when I did take like a little animation class in school. Oh yeah, I remember doing this in like Flipnote, but like now you're doing it in like Flash or like Photoshop.
And... So most of your stuff was sketch work though, right? Like you did a pencil and paper, right?
I was really into Prismacolor markers as well. I got a big set of Prismacolor markers one Christmas and just did some marker stuff. And
I'm assuming those are good markers.
They are really nice markers.
Like
Prismacolor and Copics for my fellow art nerds. Those are the good stuff.
It means nothing to me. Like I got nothing, but for all you nerdy art people out there, you're probably just like, wow, she had those.
Prismacolors at age 13. Like,
oh my gosh. That's crazy.
Yeah, my parents love me.
Is that kind of like giving a Mac to a 10-year-old?
Not as such. I mean, they're still markers. Like,
obviously.
But yeah, it was a very nice set, and I was super excited about it. So.
Okay. So when did it start to become digital drawing?
Digital drawing. That would be high school. I got my first I got like a little Wacom like bamboo tablet that would plug into the computer, and that's what I did. Used all high school, and like the comics I'd write, or even just like digital art would be on my Photoshop Elements with my little bamboo tablet.
Now, is there a specific brand that you prefer now with tablets?
I've only really used Wacom stuff. Like I got to use a Cintiq at school, which is super nice. Those are the big monitor ones. Where, like you're leaning up against it versus like looking at your screen while you've got your tablet on your lap trying to do it. Though I still use like just one of those plug-in tablets right now because I don't have a Cintiq yet.
Right.
But
because we're poor college students.
Wacom, so yeah. And also Wacoms are pretty affordable for college students too.
Yeah.
Especially like the non-Cintiq ones. So
yeah, because I've been thinking about just getting one just to like try it out because like I want to start designing my own logos and stuff for the podcast.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of stuff where it's just I don't even know if I'd be good at it. Like my wife is so much better at it than I am. She's such a good drawer. Or sorry, I don't know, illustrator. I don't know. A drawer.
Pull it open.
What are we gonna do today? I don't know. Let's open the drawer. Let's see what we're gonna get.
Drawing drawer. Drawer.
No, let's not. That's a horrible. The drawing drawer. No. That's all I'm going to be able to think about now.
Put it on a t-shirt. Just like...
Yeah, that's what we'll do. We're going to make specific merch for this episode with Emilee Dummer, the fantastic illustrator, and it's going to be the drawing drawer.
Exactly.
And it's just going to be a
of
picture of somebody, the back of somebody's head, and a drawer just pulling out a pencil. That's all it's going to be.
Yep.
So, in college, where did it go from there?
In college.
Like, where did you start drawing inspiration from in college?
College was exciting because it was me blending a lot of the animation people that I was inspired by, that I learned about like on Tumblr and just like following. And, you know, I also got my first Instagram around then.
Right.
So following artists there, which was super cool. And then also my teachers, because I was in the illustration program at BYU. And that really inspired me too, as well as my art history classes. Because now we're not just learning about all the commercial artists, we're learning about, you know, the old masters. We're learning about like what was art like in the medieval ages, or even what was art in like the glamour age of like the 1930s illustrators.
Okay, yeah.
So that was just amazing for me, like getting introduced to the full illustration stuff. Because I mean, even with, you know, like the anime and the comics and like Disney, even that's still very commercial based and super Western.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
But dealing into, you know, the old illustrators and the pen and ink people, like Charles Dana Gibson, my mind got blown when I was introduced to his work, because he's like from about the turn of the century, and he designed like the quintessential like Victorian or like early 1900s woman, like the feminist woman.
Oh,
basically.
okay, yeah.
His line art is amazing. Again, going back, like if I try to do like hatch marks on someone's face, it makes them look like an old lady, but he can like capture like the curves and like cheekbones of like a woman like so beautifully. And he was also really funny. Like he'd do these like cartoons for like newspapers or magazines and stuff, which is these really like bitter captions that are honestly they still vibe today. Actually, there's this one about like, and there's this girl and she's like in a bed and she's just like so sad, depressed, and like this like kind of hoity-toity doctor's like inspecting her hand, and it was like in that moment like Mrs. Bradshaw decided she would die, or like something like that. Like
yeah, that kind of fits exactly with this year actually. That's crazy.
Yeah, and it's just like super tongue-in-cheek. So like getting introduced to stuff like that, where I mean, my style doesn't necessarily like reflect Charles Dana Gibson too much, but
I don't know. You're kind of that chaotic good, remember?
Chaotic good, yeah, that's right. But yeah, I still use like line art sometimes, and I'm like, shout out to
this is my boy
Charles.
Heck yeah.
Like, even just people like, you know, J.C. Linedecker, his painting is amazing. He did a bunch of like ads in the 1930s, but everything is super angular. So even like the highlights on the heads are like triangles, and like
oh really?
The hair, like if it's a curl, it won't just be like a super soft curl, would be super sharp on the top, but then it'll like curve in. So just getting introduced to different ways of seeing shapes and like surfaces, and like, so it was just like a fire hose, but like trying to absorb it all.
No, yeah. So you said this is when you started taking art history classes. So we know as a kid that you were Picasso and Van Gogh. So when you started learning about the older masters and their art styles, who did you, I guess, resonate with more?
I actually fell in love with a lot of medieval art, especially like the architecture back then. Like, so there's not like one specific guy I can like name for
just
that.
The era?
But just that era, just the way they use shapes and patterns. Because like as a kid, I loved poker cards, actually, like face cards.
Oh, yeah.
The design on that. And then I found that was based on like these old medieval paintings and stuff. And so it was just like, oh.
So when you mean like, when you say medieval paintings, are you talking about Girl with the Pearl Earring era?
No. So before that, I'm talking like manuscripts, like illuminated manuscripts, like Gothic architecture, cathedrals, stained glass.
So this is like Da Vinci kind of stuff. Like
even before Da Vinci.
Oh,
like,
one
1300s.
Like, oh, okay. Oh, so like way back when.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, one of my favorite things in the world is the Bayou Tapestry. It's one of the longest narrative art pieces in the world, and it's from like the conquest of like Normandy. Like I can't remember all the history, but it's basically the story of the French king, like the English king, and all this drama that goes down. But they like embroidered it on this like giant. It's about like this tall. I'm holding it. It's about like 2 feet tall by like a bajillion feet long, and so it's not like a true tapestry. They just call it that, but
it's more like a rug.
Not necessarily. It's like it's basically a giant comic strip.
Oh,
that, like, stretches
okay,
on and, like, I mean, there's like a meme generator for it on the internet you can track down.
Really?
Yeah, because like some of the faces and stuff are hilarious. Like,
I think I do know what you're talking about now. Yeah. Because when I think about that kind of era, because I took, so interestingly enough, when I was in college, I took a music history class. But the way that the professor taught it, this guy is wonderful. I love him so much. The way he did it, he was like, we're going to do art and music. He would take the music of the period, but then also be like, so this is the art that surrounded it and like what was influencing the music that was being made. But I remember going through like the history of it all too. And so when I think about medieval, I think about Charlemagne era, when he started like ruling and that kind of stuff. So I think I know exactly. In my head, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, like, and my terms could be off too. It's been a while. Like, I know there's different like areas too. Like, there's the Byzantine stuff, which was more like Russia, Middle East, that
like that
area.
mosaic type.
Yeah. It's been a while. I should brush up on that because I do love it so much. But
I think you should try something mosaic, those like hexagon shapes, and then like, try making something out of that.
Yeah,
that'd be interesting to see. I'd like to see what Neil looks like with that.
Just use the pixel like filter in Photoshop. Like, there he is. Boop.
I mean, maybe not. Okay, maybe not that harsh. That's really interesting because when I think of like manuscripts and stuff, I immediately go to Da Vinci because I like that the style that it comes through as, like the Vitruvian Man. I love the way that looks, like the colors that are used, because he didn't have a lot, but the way that the paper worked with it too.
Yeah,
like that's what I really liked.
Master of like pen and ink. So if you want to learn like ink, just go try to copy his stuff, like, and try emphasize.
Just blatantly rip off Da Vinci. Do it.
Well, that's important. You gotta steal first before you can become.
Okay, that's the lesson for
today.
There's
a saying. There's a whole book about it. It's called like steal like an artist. You know, you snag what you want, like what you like from other artists, and then it kind of.
It's a buffet line. That's all art really is. It's a buffet line.
Exactly. Yeah. And then you just like make your own like giant concoction of stuff, and if it tastes good, then you keep adding to it. Like.
Okay. So we've gone through the whole, mostly the whole timeline now. So what would you say was your biggest influence? Just wanting to be an artist and wanting to be an illustrator and animator. What was the one thing, like, if I could be on this level, that would be the goal. That's the dream.
Wow, that's a good question. And I don't know if I can boil it down to just one thing, because like with everything, it's just like this constant cycle of all the things that influence you and inspire you,
right,
and come together. But I think it still goes back to those super early childhood reading stuff like Calvin and Hobbes. It's like, this is so fun. And for me, the story is always the most important thing. Like,
right, yeah.
The story behind everything is so important, and if you can, and as I've experienced lots of different stories, whether through movies or comics or TV, and if there's a story that like resonates with you and impacts you and like kind of carries over into your everyday life, that's what I think is the best thing you could do. And so if it's stuff like Big Hero 6, where I was like, oh yeah, I want to make that art. And then, even recently, like I know Zootopia was a movie that like really pushed me towards like, I want to make movies like that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, because that one, I went into it pretty blind. Like I'd seen like maybe the teaser, and I was like, oh yeah, Disney movie. Like I'll go see it with my family while I'm like home. Or I guess spring day, because BYU doesn't do spring breaks.
Yeah, we get one day. It's a Friday, and then we get the weekend.
But that movie was just amazing, and I actually got to meet one of the main designers from it pretty soon afterward. I got to meet Corey Loftus. Yeah, he came to BYU and did a presentation, and so I think for as far as my current trajectory, that was probably one of the most key moments where I realized that like amazing stuff exists, and this story really resonates with me, and also people made that story, and I got to talk to one about it, and he actually I bought one of his art books, and I was super shy like about it. I was just like, oh, thank you for like your work on Zootopia, and like as he's like signing his name, but then he's like, okay, then he drew me like a little nick in the book, and I was like, oh.
Whoa.
And like,
so it was kind of like a fangirl moment.
It was a fangirl moment. It's funny. Like I told my mom about it. I was so excited. She's like, "Wow, Emily, this is the most excited you've ever been about talking to a boy." And I'm like, "Mom!"
Oh my gosh! Wow, that's your mom wrecked you with that.
She
Holy
did.
crap! That's rough. But I guess you could say like the bar, it just kept getting higher, right? I mean, to put it bluntly, manga is not necessarily like a low bar, but it's just, I guess you could say like in terms of just drawing, it's like it's just pictures, right? Yeah. But as you got older, like the bar just kept getting higher with the more that you experience.
Exactly.
So I guess, what would you say is like the peak? Like what would the peak of your art be? Like would it be like animating your own movie, or?
I think actually recently I watch a lot of cartoons, and one of the ones that I started watching over this past summer with my sisters was the new DuckTales reboot. And
they rebooted that?
They did, and it's amazing. You should watch it. I could rant about it for quite a bit because like it hits a lot of the bars that I really like, but especially the story is very strong and the humor is very strong, and the art style is also very strong. But what's cool about that show is that the crew behind it is very vocal on like social media and stuff.
Okay.
One of the main directors, Frank Angones, he answers questions all the time on like Tumblr, and like a lot of the animators even post their rough animation, and like the writers, they're all super active, and so you just kind of be able to peel away and see like what it's like for them. And,
right.
And it was cool. I was listening to an interview with one of the people, and they were talking about like the writers' room and how they like all come together, their core team of writers and art, like story people, and then they like plan out the season, and then like they each claim like which episodes they want to like have like be their baby for like
Right,
season.
yeah.
And like, so to me that side of it is most fascinating to me because, you know, everything that follows, the art and the animation all starts with the story itself.
Right, yeah.
So I would love to be storyboarding for a show like that where the writing is so strong, or and some of their storyboarders even get to move over to the writing side, like and like direct an episode or
Right.
like write an episode. So for me, I think that would be the coolest because that's where like your storytelling ability and like your vision can be at the very beginning, so then people can build on it.
Right.
Because like one thing I've realized is that I can't do everything.
No,
like,
yeah.
For like everything, like the vision for like these stories I have in my head, I can't do all of it. I can't do all the backgrounds. I can't do all the colors. I can't do the
Right.
music. Like I know nothing about writing music, but I'm like, oh, if this kind of music would be at this scene or whatever. But
No, yeah.
it's like being at that point where you're kind of like the nexus for everything that comes after you, and you can like share your vision, but also learn from other people's experience. And as you build like something that really impacts people, is I think that would be the goal because. I know for me, like so many shows and movies that have really inspired me to not only work on my art, but even just like, you know, be a better person,
Right,
be more
yeah.
friendly, like, or overcome something that's like really hard for you. Just stuff like that, I think is the best thing that you can do with
Right.
your art.
See, and that's something that I think that would be really interesting. Like in the last episode, I said if you made a YouTube channel where, you know, you did like these small animations of your characters, whether it's Peter Pan's crazy psycho shadow or if you did Neil, I think it'd just be really interesting because, you know, you could show the entire animation from beginning to end, but then you could break it up into later parts and like the behind the scenes where like, okay, this is like how the storyboarding went. This is like where the animation went. This is, you know, the voicing and the music behind it. I think that would be really interesting because, you know, it would give you the finished product, but then it would break it down by pieces.
Exactly. And people love stuff like that. And again, like that's one reason why, you know, I love the storyboards and like seeing like behind the curtain is because you get to see those like bare bones, and you also get to learn from it too. Be like, oh, that's
Right.
how they did this shot. That's how like that's why they did that like one motif in the music or whatever. Like it's so cool. And nowadays with YouTube and stuff, people are, and Twitter and everything, even like people are so transparent about what they can talk about. Obviously,
Right,
there's, like,
yeah,
NDAs
absolutely.
and stuff, but like you can learn so much just from interacting with these people and like watching them and listening to interviews. And yeah, like people
Yeah.
eat that stuff up. So.
Oh no, yeah, and because especially like, nowadays, like kids are on YouTube so much, you know, especially for kids like who are younger and younger getting on YouTube. For those who are interested in art, that would be a good place to find it, where it's just not only just showing the animation and like showing the finished product, but just this is how you storyboard. This is how I storyboarded this.
Well, that actually reminds me. I remember going back to like that 3 to 4 year old era. Like I'd watch like a lot of Disney movies on VHS, and I remember the Sleeping Beauty one. My mom would say, okay, one movie a day, but I would watch through the credits because I wanted to just keep watching TV. But at the end of that VHS, they had like a 15-minute like making of documentary, and it was, you know, like Walt Disney himself talking about it, like Ivan Earl, like with the lead background artist, him talking about it, him doing it. They actually showed like how they painted the backgrounds, and I think that's another thing that probably impacted me a lot in like wanting to see behind the curtain on how they made this, because, you know, it was just 15 minutes, you know, like Walt Disney himself being like, this is how we made
like the
Sleeping
master
Beauty.
literally doing it.
And they like talked about how they brought in actors to like act out the scene that the animators would watch and like study from, like even just to see,
that's
like,
interesting.
the physics of like Aurora's dress and stuff, like how to animate that, and
Right.
So yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. That's really cool. I didn't even know those existed.
You should. I think it's on YouTube now. You should go look it up. I don't know if they did it for any of his other movies, but yeah, behind the scenes stuff is so cool.
That's really cool. Yeah. So if you were to give. So for anybody who's listening who is like a fledgling artist, or like, you know, somebody who's trying to get into art but they just don't know where to start, or like they're not that good but they want to get better, what would one piece of, not necessarily like advice, but if you could tell yourself one piece of advice like when you were younger, what would it be?
I think it'd probably be like embrace what you love, no matter what that is, but then find out why you love it is the best advice, because like if something impacts you and stays with you, that's for a reason, and it could be like an artistic reason, like you really like how that artist like handled shadows, so you want to like, you know, snag that specifically the next time you need to draw something with shadows. But even just going deeper into the story, like, why does that story resonate with you? What did the characters learn, and like why is that important to you? And then how can you know do something like that within your own work? Because I think the end goal is all about preparing it for like the next generation, and
right. So it's kind of like getting to the bare bones of it.
Get to the bare bones, because once you can find out that what makes something tick, you can do the same thing in your own work. So
right.
I recommend like watch stuff, read stuff, but then like analyze what you're what you're doing. And like one thing I'm even doing right now that a bunch of storyboard artists have recommended is that, you know, you watch a scene and then you go back to the beginning of it and then you basically reverse storyboard it. Like you copy like what their composition is each time the camera moves.
Okay.
And then so I did that the other day with a scene from DuckTales because it's so good. But then what I did afterward, I went and I was like, okay, what are the shots even called? Because I know they have a bunch of camera angles you're supposed to know if you're a storyboard artist. So I looked up a big list of them, and I was like, okay, I have my little copied storyboard here, and I was like,
right,
this is that's a medium shot. Like, oh, this is a close up, and I went through and like labeled them all, and then afterwards I kind of analyzed. It's like, oh, they only zoomed out like in these 3 shots, but then the only time they zoomed in was for like effect, like right at the end, like it really zoomed into a big close up, and I was like, oh, they did that to like make tension. And so just breaking it down after you like enjoy it and then copy it.
If I were animating this, like watching the finished product, like how would I storyboard that kind of? That's really interesting. I never thought of it that way. You know, you go through and like you look at it, it's like, oh, that's really interesting how they did that, and like recognize the actual animation of this. That's actually really interesting. Huh. I mean, but I guess that's kind of what you do in language. You know, you look at the whole thing, but then you have to break it down to be like, hey, what are the individual parts that are making this? That's, wow. You can find a lot of cross-disciplinary. Yeah, that's how you.
Stuff,
this is how we learn, ladies and gentlemen. Take what you know and then listen to somebody else rant about what they like. Exactly. I mean, that's how you got to do it. You know, I guess illustrators and linguists aren't that different. Yeah, right. I mean,
we're using our brains to do cool things, so.
I don't know, man. Some of that stuff, that was verbal, just garbage. It was not good. Ugh. No, because literally, there were some instances where I was just, let's take this starting word or like this starting vowel, and then let's just see what works. Let's just randomly throw in a random combination of sounds. Put it in a blender
and see what shows
That's
up.
Basically what it was. Some of the words were just, it doesn't really sound like anything, but I can make it sound like something. That's basically how it was. It was really interesting hearing this, how both of us have like a lot of the same influences, but like how we branch so differently. Because I had different talents and you had different talents, but we had a lot of the same interests like growing up. Seeing like that, I guess that divergence from like the same kind of influences.
Well, and that's another important thing you need to do is like just learn about yourself and like learn, you know, what things you're good at, and you do that by experimenting with lots of different things, because, you know, I think everyone has something that, you know, they're meant to do and that they're kind of wired to be good at. And so whether that you're watching like an anime, let's say, and either you're inspired by like the music, and then maybe your brain starts picking up on like character motifs or like how they use the beats, and that inspires you to go on and write your own music. Or if you're like watching like an action scene and then you like love how like the fight flows, and that inspires you to like study that, and then you go on to like storyboarders and like make comics or something like that. So yeah, I'd say just like explore things and don't be afraid to try new things, and recognize that there are some things that you're just not gonna like, and that's okay. So like
follow your dreams, kids.
Yep. Go live your dream. I will. Your dream stinks. I was talking to
her. What is that from?
It's from Tangled.
I haven't seen that movie. Oh my gosh.
It's good. I want that saying on a t-shirt so much.
Well, like we're gonna have to petition Disney. We're gonna have to write a letter to Disney, angry letter, because you're chaotic. So we have to like threaten them into making it. That's how we do it. Yeah.
The good is still in there. Like, it has to be the chaotically nicest.
The chaotic good. That's the motive. So thank you. This is really good.
Oh, this was super awesome.
So again, for the people who didn't listen last time, where can they find you?
I'm most active on Instagram right now, and that's just Dummer Art, EDUMMER, then art at the Instagrams.
Yeah, at the Instagrams where all the cool kids put stuff.
Oh yeah,
because we're totally cool. Those awkward nerdy kids in school.
Yep, here we are. Look at us. We're on a podcast.
You have 1,000 followers. I don't know. You're actually really popular.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
It's like
got that little like the mustache like ha.
Indeed.
I have the mustache. You don't have the mustache.
No, but I'll just twirl yours like for me, like vicariously.
But yeah, okay, there we go. Anyway, thanks for listening, guys. Thanks for being a part of this.
Guys.
Hey there, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of For Nostalgia's Sake with Emilee Dummer on the Common Tongue Podcasts. Wherever you listen to podcasts, whether it's on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, leave us a like, give us a follow, leave us a review, let us know how we're doing. If you also have time, go check us out on Kickstarter to go support the show. We have a lot of different incentives on there for people who donate, and if you would like to support the show, we're also planning on coming up with a Patreon here soon as we come up with a few more show ideas and as soon as we get that ball rolling. So follow us on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, and we'll see you in the next one.